This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss all of the news in the world of sports. My name is Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
We're back here on a Friday, leading you into the weekend. Normally, we would talk a ton of football. We'll talk a little bit. We have the Pro Bowl. We have some of these ridiculous Westgate Las Vegas prop bets. There's over 400 Super Bowl prop bets. We're not going to cover all of them, obviously. We'll be talking about that till tomorrow. But we'll do some of the more kooky and silly ones. We'll talk the Pro Bowl a little bit. We had the skills and dodgeball game last night. Sort of thoughts on everything. But we're going to lead off with basketball. A lot of the storylines coming from basketball today. A lot of good ones, too. I feel like basketball has been great this past week.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for a lot of the games, but just sort of the off-the-court incidents. You have Carmelo Anthony. Is he getting traded to the Clippers, to the Celtics, to the Cavaliers? LeBron James is upset. Jimmy Butler and Dwayne Wade absolutely fired back at their teammates yesterday, and we'll continue that in a little bit. But first, we'll start off with the Western Conference and Eastern Conference All-Star reserves. They were announced last night. So, Anthony, why don't I tackle the West?
Okay.
And you can go with the East. So, Surprise here, the first name is Russell Westbrook.
Right.
I mean, I didn't even think he'd be an All-Star this year. He's not having that great of a season.
He's okay.
I mean, yeah, he's doing.
He's fine.
No, Russell Westbrook obviously probably should be starting, but he's not. Big deal. But he's making his 6th All-Star appearance, all with the Thunder. Klay Thompson is one of 2 Golden State Warriors on the reserves. He's making his 3rd appearance. The other is Draymond Green, his 2nd appearance. There is 4 members of the Golden State Warriors on an All-Star team. That's the 11th time that a team has had 4 All-Stars. DeMarcus Cousins makes his 3rd straight appearance for the Sacramento Kings. Marc Gasol, coming off of a career high the other night, makes his 3rd appearance for the Grizzlies. And a couple of first-timers, DeAndre Jordan from the Clippers and Gordon Hayward of the Jazz. So I'm kind of surprised. They went with a lot of big men on the Western Conference side. You look at the starters, kind of small. You have Kawhi Leonard, you have Kevin Durant, you have Westbrook. Or not Westbrook, obviously. You have Curry, you have James Harden, and then you have Anthony Davis. But they went with a lot of big men. So if you throw in Anthony Davis as well as the other 3, they have 4 centers. A little surprise there. But there are some injuries to some guys. Obviously, Blake Griffin is out. Some really biggest surprise that's not on the Western Conference side is Chris Paul. It's been a while since we have not seen him there. But he would be injured anyway. So in my eyes, there's really no point in even putting him in regardless because he wouldn't be playing.
Right.
So that does open the door for guys like Gordon Hayward and maybe DeAndre Jordan. But a couple of first-timers there. A lot of big men, though. And now, Anthony, the Eastern Conference side.
So on the Eastern side, you got Isaiah Thomas, the Celtics guard. He's making his 2nd appearance, both of them with the Boston Celtics. You got John Wall making his 4th with the Washington Wizards. Kevin Love makes it for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Kyle Lowry joining DeMar DeRozan with the Raptors. Paul George with the Indiana Pacers. Kemba Walker making his 1st appearance with the Charlotte Hornets. And then Paul Millsap with the Atlanta Hawks. It's his 4th time doing it. So, kind of a different thing. No centers.
They went with all guards.
They went with all guards, which is actually kind of a interesting kind of thing because you look at the team, basically Eastern Conference anyways, and Kyrie Irving, DeMar DeRozan, Jimmy Butler, LeBron James, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. None of them are centers. I mean, yeah, Giannis is about a 6'11" or so, but he plays like a point guard style.
I guess you could say their biggest guys are like Kevin Love and Millsap, who aren't centers. They're like stretch 4s anyway.
Right.
But, I mean, if you include Kyrie Irving, you have 5 true point guards.
Right.
With Lowry, Walker, Wall, and Thomas. So I guess you got to give the Western Conference side the edge in that regard. Although this is an exhibition game, they don't really play until the 4th quarter anyway.
Right.
So I guess it'll be one of those 160 to 150 games, which is just kind of fun to watch. But
sure.
For me, I'm kind of disappointed that Joel Embiid is not an All-Star.
Oh yeah. I'm disappointed he wasn't the starter because you had the whole thing with him basically trying to talk to Rihanna and needed to be a starter, and they he tried to campaign to do that, and then he had a funny tweet after he didn't make it, and now you have a couple of snubs. You have him as like a snub. You have something like a Mike Conley, Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard basically is just going to be mad the rest of the season because he's basically for the second year hasn't been nominated for the All-Star team, even though last year I think he made second team All-NBA, which seems kind of a strange thing to do both of those things. And he basically now has like the anger of not getting voted in. Now, who knows? Maybe somebody gets hurt. We saw something last night where someone got a little upset, got injured. So maybe, on the Western side, maybe be somebody, I wouldn't say like maybe Klay Thompson just like, tweaks something and he has to sit out or something like that. Like maybe something happens, maybe DeAndre Jordan, something happens to him. Like he could still get voted in, but it's just Damian Lillard is one of those like interesting ones that like he doesn't seem to get as much love as he probably should get.
I think it's probably because the Blazers not having the best team this year. Obviously, their success last year, they beat the Clippers in the first round in the Western Conference playoffs. So I think that's maybe why you can give an edge to like a Gordon Hayward. Mm-hmm. Jazz competing, they're midway through the season right now. They're like 4th or 5th in the Western Conference side. So they're having a really good season, and Hayward's a big part of that. A couple other snubs that maybe you could say a Rudy Gobert of the Jazz. I'd probably throw him in there over DeAndre Jordan, personally.
I was surprised DeAndre never got an All-Star. I thought DeAndre at some point in the whole Lob City thing would have gotten an All-Star, and I didn't realize this was his first time around.
Yeah, I don't really have much of a problem with really both of these sides. I'm just really surprised the East went with so many guards, especially point guards. And then I would have loved to have seen Joel Embiid, one of the more entertaining players in the league. Always a great follow on social media.
Oh yeah,
and really I could say he's kind of more important than some of these other guys. Like you have Paul Millsap on there. He's doing okay with the Hawks, but he looks like he may even be traded before the deadline next month. The Sixers have 17 wins. They had 10 all of last year. And the really only change was Embiid. So you could say he's kind of like their most important and valuable player and kind of credited for turning their team around.
Right.
Averaging basically 20 points and 8 rebounds and 2.5 blocks. We talked about him on Wednesday with the resurrection of the Sixers. So, I mean, I guess I would have loved to have seen him in there. It's a game for the fans, an entertaining game. Other than that, I don't really have much of a problem. Some of the notables not on this list, though. Carmelo Anthony, who's probably having the worst week of his career.
Yeah, man.
And then Dwayne Wade, who we'll talk about in a minute, a little bit of controversy out there in Chicago. So, no Chris Paul, no Carmelo Anthony, and no Dwayne Wade. Kind of a little surprise there, but, I mean, it is what it is, man.
I mean, with Dwayne Wade, he's not having the same kind of year as you would hope from him. He's in a new situation in Chicago. Carmelo, like you said, I mean, he wants out of New York so badly.
And they want to get rid of him so bad.
Well, not they. Phil Jackson wants him out so bad. Like, I think the fans, like, I've heard, people on, like, other shows, whatever, like, fans of the Knicks call up, like, they don't seem to be as mad at Carmelo as they are at Phil Jackson. Because at least Melo's been there for a handful of years, and he tried to do things with them, making it into the playoffs and trying to win a title. He's at least come in and tried to do positive things. Phil, all of his accomplishments as a head coach and everything else like that, it's coming in and just, you brought in Noah, you brought in Rose, you didn't make the team any better. They seem to be turning on Phil more than they are Carmelo, but Melo, it looks like he's either going to go, like I said, Boston, Cleveland, LA, something like that, like, because he has that no trade clause, so he can basically veto whatever he wants, but it looks like it's so toxic that he's probably going to get out at some point and go to a different team now.
Yeah, he's definitely probably having the worst week of his career, just all the turmoil. Is he shipping out of New York? Now he's on an All-Star, which I'm sure probably means something to him. But
yeah, I mean, it's like the first time that, I think I saw something, it was the first time that he and Wade aren't an All-Star since their rookie seasons in 2004. Like, outside of that, they've always been an All-Star along with, their buddy LeBron.
Exactly, it's been those three. I mean, that was like a historically great draft class. You can throw Chris Bosh in there as well, among others. But, I mean, it is what it is. The league's getting younger. You have a lot of first-timers, 4 of them, if you include Antetokounmpo, who's starting in his first career All-Star game. So the league's getting younger, but, I mean, it is what it is. So we're sticking in basketball. Kind of a fluky incident last night in the Oklahoma City Thunder game against the Mavericks. So the Thunder, although Westbrook does not have a triple-double, he puts up 45 points, absolutely carries them in the fourth quarter, and they beat the Mavericks 109-98. Enes Kanter, who's having a really, really good season this year, averaging about 15 points and 7 rebounds off the bench. Guy who's playing a lot of minutes down the stretch, as well as Steven Adams. So he actually fractures his forearm. So you're thinking, maybe he fell to the ground after getting fouled hard, or something happened, something fluky. Well, not so much the case. So Kanter is obviously subbed out during the game, a little frustrated with it, a little bit frustrated with his play. So he decides to take out his frustration by punching and slamming his hand and arm on the folding chair, and fractures his forearm, and is now expected to be out for up to 2 months.
Yeah.
What are you doing, man? I get it. I get you get frustrated.
Well, yeah, that's it.
I've been in that way. I've been in sports my whole life. There's times where you're frustrated, but not once have I ever...
You ever punched a wall?
Punched anything.
Really?
Yeah, man.
I've gotten mad and punched something. It's just kind of that quick emotion. It's like, oh, mother... And you punch something or whatever. And he punched something that was padded, which seems kind of strange.
That's what I was going to say. It's like he punched a padded chair. Imagine if it wasn't, he would have done even more damage.
Right, because you had the thing back in the day, probably 7 years ago or something like that, with Amari Stoudemire and the fire extinguisher, where he punched that and, messed up his hand after that. So it's I get that athletes, not athletes, just people in general, you kind of have your, freak out moment where you're just oh, mother, when you punch something or whatever, and usually you're fine or whatever, especially, if you hit something padded. He just broke his forearm, and now you look at the Thunder. We said before that it was basically just Westbrook and a bunch of scrubs, and now, you still got Oladipo on the team, but Kanter was a guy you could at least dump the ball down to on offense, from the bench, and now he's gone. Steven Adams is still gone. Oladipo had 17 points last night, and Westbrook had 17 points in all of the fourth quarter just by himself. So it's still going to be the Russell Westbrook show. At least they have the All-Star game coming up in about a month or so, so you at least have some kind of a break with that for him to recharge a little bit. But, unless they go after somebody on offense, they're going to be so, just even more reliant on Russell Westbrook.
Enes Kanter was definitely a big part of their team. I guess you could say they're 6 men, which is kind of different. Usually you see a flashy guard,
right?
Someone who could score a lot of points, but Kanter a true big man. So it's a little different. But yeah, I've never been that way where I would just get mad and punch something or take out my frustration by doing something like that. But, it happens. It's a fluky incident. Things happen, and I guess you have to be more careful. And now the Thunder have to move on. They're already, middle of the pack. They're 6th in the West right now, so they're still, even with how great Westbrook has been this year, not up there with the elites in the Western Conference. So,
no.
And it gets even worse without Kanter now. So staying in the NBA, before we take the break, this is basically the biggest news, and when I read this last night, I was like, wow, shots fired. Shots absolutely fired. So yesterday morning after the Bulls game where they had lost, a little bit of controversy here. I guess you could say the leaders of the team,
right,
in being Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler, kind of called out their team after their game last night. The Bulls not doing too well this season, basically 500, middle of the pack there in the Eastern Conference, not really having as much success as they would have hoped when they brought in Rajon Rondo as well as Dwayne Wade after trading Derrick Rose to team up with Jimmy Butler as a smaller a la-esque of a big three. So they're not having a really good run of things. So Butler and Wade being probably the best two players on the team, the leaders, they kind of called out a lot of their younger teammates saying they don't really bring it every single night, aren't really team players, don't really care a lot about winning because they're not constantly going out there and showing it every night. So Rajon Rondo, who is definitely not afraid to open up his mouth and say what is on his mind, answered back in a big way on Instagram last night. So he posted a picture of his Boston days with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce where they're basically about to clap hands, handshake, probably a good play, going to a timeout or something. And this is a pretty lengthy piece, but I guess I'll read it verbatim because every single word of it is fantastic. So he says, quote, "My vets would never go to the media. They would come to the team. My vets didn't pick and choose when they wanted to bring it. They brought it every time they stepped in the gym, whether it was practice or a game. They didn't take days off. My vets didn't care about their numbers. My vets played for the team. When they lost, they wouldn't blame us. They took responsibility and got in the gym. They showed the young guys what it meant to work. Even in Boston, when we had the best record in the league, if we lost a game, you could hear a pin drop on the bus. They showed us the seriousness of the game. my vets didn't have an influence on the coaching staff. They couldn't change the plan because it didn't work for them. I played under one of the greatest coaches, being Doc Rivers, and he held everyone accountable. It takes 1 through 15 to win. When you isolate everyone, you can't win consistently. I may be a lot of things, but I'm not a bad teammate, which, in my opinion, is kind of debatable. But my goal is to pass what I learned along. The young guys work. They show up. They don't deserve blame. If anything is questionable, it's the leadership. So Rondo answering back in a big way, throwing 100% of the shade at Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler.
All of the sodium, all of the salt. Just he is so... So there's a few things in this whole thing, right? Like, number one, why is the picture of Garnett and Paul Pierce and Ray Allen's not in there? Like, Ray Allen was a vet, too. Like, they hate him in Boston for leaving and going to Miami, basically. They're still mad at him for that, which, A, seems kind of petty. He says he's not a bad teammate. I feel like, you know, Rick Carlisle in Dallas would like a word with you about that. I feel like Doc Rivers would like a word with you about that because he's been having problems ever since then. It's a weird thing with Rondo because he basically, since... I mean, I got to think since around when Bob Ryan on Around the Horn or wherever basically was saying that he had those selfish assists. Ever since then, the kind of tide had turned with Rajon Rondo from, you know, really talented guy who can get you assists to selfish assists to guy who just wants to pad his stats. You know, and him being here in Sacramento, we kind of saw that firsthand too, that he can get all these numbers, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to lead to anything. I mean, he led the league in assists last year, which he pointed out earlier on in the season. Didn't win anything when that was happening. And now he takes this whole thing talking about, you know, my vets wouldn't do this, my vets wouldn't do that. I mean, okay, that's fine. Also, you know, you had Kevin Garnett in your team, who was maybe the most insane person ever in the history of the NBA, who would just go nuts no matter what and super, super, super intense. You know, the team in Boston was a super team, was probably one of the first of the new super teams that was constructed via free agency, and now you have the situation where, I mean, it hadn't gone well for Rondo the whole season. He's been getting benched and all these things, and everything was kind of going sideways. You know, forget about a couple of days ago, about a month ago, the stuff was going sideways for him, and he just, I don't know, because it's a weird thing because he probably knew he was on his best behavior, right? Because he had the thing in Boston, he had the thing in Dallas, he was in a weird situation in Sacramento. That wasn't really anything his fault. That was just kind of like the whole team around him being insane. But he kind of knew he was on his last kind of chance.
Like his last straw.
Yeah, and he says all of this now, and he could have just kind of been sitting by the wayside doing the Kermit sipping the tea thing, just like, none of my business, you guys kind of do you, and he still could have been not in the, you know, nuclear blast of this whole thing, but now he just kind of sticks his face just right in the furnace, and it's like, all right, cool, you know, I want a piece of this too, which might go poorly for him if he's basically thought of again as some guy who, you know, isn't a good quote-unquote team player.
So let me start off by saying the Chicago Bulls are an absolute mess.
Yeah.
As an organization. They had their glory days with Jordan and Pippen and Rodman. They had a little bit of a run there with Derrick Rose when he was MVP. And then really since he hurt his knee in that first round against Philadelphia, it's just been a downward spiral that continues to implode. You have the whole Derrick Rose incident, missing basically 2 years in a row, taking days off and resting games so he can, quote, be able to walk in the gym to see his kids graduate.
Right.
And then you finally dump Derrick Rose to New York, and you finally move on past that debacle. You start over with Jimmy Butler, who's a good young player. You bring in a living legend in Dwayne Wade, although he's aging at 35, a hometown guy who can probably sell some tickets. You bring in Rondo, who's been a good player but has had some issues. So you bring in a whole new regime to try and sort of right the ship and go back to your glory days.
Don't forget about Tom Thibodeau and that whole insane thing that happened with him and bringing in Fred Hoiberg.
Of course, as well, the coaching changes. So you do all this, and now it's not working as well. You're 23-23 as of a couple of days ago, and it's just even worse. So now you have Butler and Wade calling out the teammates, and now you throw Rajon Rondo into the mix. It's like, can this situation possibly get any worse than it already is? So here's my take on it. If you take away the name on this post,
right,
this is fantastic. But given a guy like Rondo, as I mentioned, who's not afraid to open up his mouth and say what's on his mind, this is probably going to be taken bad.
Right.
Because Rondo's a guy who's done similar things in the past. So now you throw this into the mix. I think two things. Number one, whether it's Dwayne Wade, Jimmy Butler, Rajon Rondo, keep your mouth shut when it comes to the media. If you have issues with teammates or coaches, say it at practice. Say it in the team facility. Say it in a meeting. Going out to the public and going to the media does not make things any better. This does not make the team any better at all.
No, this doesn't make the team any better, but for someone like Wade, right, like Jimmy Butler's kind of talked to the media a handful of times, right, because he had the thing where he was talking about Hoiberg saying basically he's not Thibodeau and he needs to push us harder on defense and stuff like that. He's said stuff to the media before, and Rondo, has had a love-hate relationship with both the media and everything like that. Wade never really did any of this when he was in Miami or anything else. Like, you never really heard from Wade. And like you're talking about with Rondo in this post, it would be funny and awesome if it wasn't Rondo. Like, it's also a thing where, at least Wade and Butler were like kind of putting their name on it, like not put the name on it, but like saying the actual words, like to where Rondo was super passive aggressive with this kind of Instagram post and just kind of like posted and just kind of like, watched and see what happens, to where Wade and Butler were just like saying it and had to answer questions afterwards when something was happening. They at least had some kind of, physical interaction and like they could respond to it, to where Rondo just kind of posted it and just kind of like watched everything happen after that, kind of in the shadows.
And then my other point was, how at all does this build chemistry within the team for the rest of the season?
Oh, they're done. No, there's this team, like you talked about,
this team
Anthony,
is already imploded, and now you can just literally drop another bomb on this team because you already have Butler and Wade on one side and Rondo on the other side. They're not going to say a single word to each other for the rest of the year and have to play the games.
We assume they're all going to stay on the same team for the rest of the year. Someone's getting traded.
Someone's probably going. It's not going to be Butler. He's their best young piece. Wade already said earlier in the week that he doesn't know where his future lies, if it's in Chicago or not, so he's already thinking about exiting. He's 35 years old. He's won 3 championships. He's gotten a lot of money in his career. Now he's doing the typical older player, 2-3 years left, probably going to bolt to a contender to try and get a couple more rings and then hang up the sneakers. So you probably have that with Dwayne Wade. Rondo's not going to be part of this team next year. He's already getting benched this year, and now you have this whole incident. So he's definitely not going to be on the Chicago Bulls roster next year. This team is literally just a mess. And this, as much as I like it, because I think it's not right to call out your teammates publicly like Wade and Butler did, this is only adding fuel to the fire as far as the team is concerned. So for that mindset, it's not a good idea, but I love it. I think it's great that Rondo's kind of stepping up and defending these younger guys, saying, not everyone's a legend like Dwayne Wade. Not everyone's a really good all-star like Jimmy Butler. And everyone's trying to do their best. And these younger guys are trying to prove themselves. They're trying to earn contracts in the league. They're trying to win championships as well. And just publicly criticizing them like that's just not a good thing. So I guess I like it for that mindset, though. We'll take our first break on the show. After the break, we'll be talking about the Australian Open. We had a thriller, I guess you can say early this morning, late last night. Anthony, you decided to watch some of it, so I'm sure you're kind of tired. You can maybe fill us in on how it was.
Right.
We had a thriller down under, and we have kind of a throwback, I guess you can say Flashback Friday, throwback tournament as far as the finals for the Australian Open. And we'll also talk about Tiger Woods yesterday making his return on the PGA Tour at the Farmers Insurance Open at Torrey Pines. Of course, he's very familiar with. Things didn't really go the way of the Tiger. So we'll talk about that right after the break at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back into the show. Rafael Nadal, early this morning. The game started at 12:30 Pacific time, so 3:30 in the morning. Obviously on Australia, they're like basically at nighttime already. But Rafael Nadal, in a 5-set classic over Grigor Dimitrov from Bulgaria, has advanced to the Australian Open final, and it's going to be a guy he will now be playing for the 9th time overall in the Grand Slam final, the living legend from Switzerland, Roger Federer, after he defeated Stan Wawrinka yesterday. You watched some of this game between Nadal and Dimitrov.
Yeah.
So give me some takeaways. What did you take away from the game?
Well, so like I watched it in like
the match, whatever you want to say.
Right. So like it started off, at least, so I got through like basically almost the first 3 sets, right, of actually like watching and everything else like that because I was invested because I wanted Nadal to win. And the first set, he won 6-3, basically, did really well from the jump, started off a little slow, but pretty much first set was all Nadal. And basically the second and third set, they were super, super close, right? They were basically going back and forth every single time. One would get an advantage, the other one would come back. Like every time Nadal got an advantage, Dimitrov kind of came back, and they were really neck and neck the whole time. And then it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, all right, I can't do this anymore. This is not something I should be doing. I need to go to sleep. But, after the first set, it was a really, really, really good back and forth between the two of them. You could see that because it was 5-7, 7-6, 6-7 for the next 3 sets between the two of them. And Nadal ended up coming out in the victory, 6-4, the final set, to now advance, like you said, to face Federer for the, you said, 9th time, in the final. And basically, I'm assuming this is the last time we're going to see this, right? At least them two in the finals, because, it took 5 sets for both of them just to reach to the finals, so I'm assuming this is pretty much the last time we're going to see them two in the finals. Both of them, I mean, honestly, maybe number 1 and number 2 all time in the history of tennis, because Federer has the most Grand Slams of all time, and Nadal has tied for second with Pete Sampras. So if Nadal wins, then he's number 2 all time, 15-17. And these two have had, basically this matchup for the past, call it, 10, 12 years.
They're definitely on the tail end of their careers as well. Nadal's 9th in the world overall. Federer 17.
Right.
It's like a throwback. I said it's like a throwback, and we can throw it on the women's side too. We'll talk about it in just a sec. But I hope Roger Federer wins it. Just one more.
You want Federer, okay.
One more for old time's sake, because I don't really expect Andy Murray to lose early like he did the rest of these Grand Slams. Novak Djokovic as well.
Djokovic was a surprising one, yeah.
So I hope Roger Federer wins it just kind of for old time's sake. I thought he would beat Stan Wawrinka because of that. He's kind of like playing. He knows he's at the tail end of his career. He knows He doesn't have much left. Yeah. So he kind of knows this is one of his last chances to get it done. So that's why I did think Federer would win, and he did. So I hope Federer wins it. Right. And then you throw it over to the women's side, and it's a matchup again. This will be their 9th time meeting in a Grand Slam final, and it's the Williams sisters final. Venus versus Serena.
See, this same thing. Like, I want to see greatness. Like, I want to see people who were the best at their craft basically keep doing it over and over and over again. Like, you talk about NFL with Brady, seeing if he can get his 5th Super Bowl to basically notch him as being the best quarterback ever. You get Serena, who's tied right now for the most Grand Slams as far as on the women's side go with 22. You have Margaret Court, who had 24, but she played back when it was like wooden rackets and a totally different style. So, Serena's tied like that, and if Venus gets this win, she's got 8 Grand Slam, which is 10th all time. You have all these kind of historical things. I even would want to see, in about April, see Tiger Woods make one more run and maybe get his last, green jacket, something like that, so he can kind of get that one last major, because it's been since 2008 for him. Like, I want to see greatness happen. I want to see people who were great be great again. Now you got something like this with the Williams sisters. Also, like I said, with Nadal and Federer, this might be the last time they ever face off in the finals. So, I'm glad this is how it all shaped up, kind of a 2000 and call it, I don't know, 5 throwback with the both of them. Venus and Serena have been doing it for about, honestly, like 17 years. But yeah, it's like kind of a cool little kind of flashback for both of these finals.
It's good storylines. I think Serena wins the women's one.
Right.
I'll say straight sets, man. She's just on absolute tear right now. I thought she'd win coming in. Going against her older sister, she's had the edge as far as the later part of the career.
Yeah.
When Venus was first starting and Serena was first starting, Venus would beat her in the finals, and then it kind of switched. Now Serena's kind of dominating her all time. So I'll go with Serena. I don't think Venus has much of a chance. But I think if Venus does win, no matter who wins on the men's side, it'll be the biggest storyline. I think she's probably the least favorite to win of the 4 remaining, if you include the men's side as well. But I think Venus doesn't have a chance against Serena.
Yeah, Venus, I mean, she's 36. She's the oldest of any of them competing, which is weird because, you have Venus at 36 years old. You got Roger Federer, who's 35 years old. You got Nadal, who's 30 years old. Like, all of them, are a little bit older. Then you got Serena, who's 35. They're all at least 30 or above. And usually in tennis, you don't get to be in the finals when you're 30. Forget 35, 36. You don't get to be there when you're 30.
Yeah, they're kind of, like I said, it's just one of those weird tournaments. We have just a flashback Friday talking show, flashback tournament, and it's great talking points. And on Monday, we'll obviously talk about who came out on top and what it means. Serena's looking for Grand Slam number 23, which would be really, really great for her. So now we'll talk about Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods made his return to the PGA Tour yesterday. It's the Farmers Insurance Open in San Diego at Torrey Pines, a course on both of them, the North and South course, that Tiger Woods has basically dominated in his career, has been really, really good on. Tiger Woods shoots a 4 over 76. He really struggled on the back nine. In total, he only hit 4 of 14 fairways in regulation, so he really struggled from the tee as well. I mean, he's 11 shots off the lead right now. Justin Rose is the leader with 7 under his round yesterday. I really don't see Tiger Woods ever winning a tournament again, let alone a major. I just think he's done, man.
So you think he's all the way done? Like, not even.
Yes.
I forget about a major. He's not winning a tournament.
Yes, I think the injuries, whether it be the back or the knee, and I think just kind of the mindset. Ever since the whole Thanksgiving night,
right,
getting a 9-iron to the face, I think it just kind of messed with his mindset, and I'm sure he's probably in the right mindset now. That was like 7 years ago. But I just think his body's kind of given up on him. Father Time is unbeaten, and I think it's caught up to Tiger Woods. I really do.
See, like, I don't take this as that dire thing as you're doing. Like, I get what you're doing because, it's not like he's shown in the last year that he's going to be any kind of Tiger Woods-ish. But see, I just take this as, like, baby steps, right? Like, he had the tournament that was his own. It wasn't like a PGA style tournament or whatever, but he had his own tournament or whatever. Now he has this one, and yeah, he didn't do anywhere near grade 4 over when the leader's at -7, so he's way, way off, and he's not going to probably be in contention. He may not even make the cut, but it's just one of those things of just like the Masters is in April, right? So all he really has to do is just kind of like build his way up there because the Masters is kind of his home court kind of thing, like, right? Like, he's done really well, even in this whole post Thanksgiving, post everything else like that. Like, he's still done pretty well there. So if he can do that and get his confidence up with that, it's just kind of one of those things where I just do the baby steps because he's not Tiger. Like, that Tiger we saw, like I said, 04, 05 or something in that area. And even when he broke onto the scene in 97, like, that dude's gone. Like, that dude's never coming back. And you also have something now where you have new golfers like Jordan Spieth and Rory McIlroy and people like that who they don't necessarily fear him because why? The whole time they've been in the pros, they haven't had to worry about him because he hasn't been Tiger Woods. Like, they were watching him when they were growing up and trying to be like him, but once they actually started playing, that Tiger Woods was gone. And like, I just take this as just like, okay, if he can make the cut after tomorrow, if he can be in not contention, but like if he can just have a good, few rounds and everything else like that, just, have baby steps for the Masters because that's all that really matters at this point. I think he wins another tournament or two. I don't think he wins another Masters, or not Masters, just, major in general. I don't think that happens. If I was a betting man and to bet that, like, I would say no because he hasn't done it to this point. You're going to keep banking on these things in your 40s. Take aside what Jack did when he was, like, I think it was like 42 or 45 when he won the last tournament he won. That's kind of a rarity, but like I said, I just think Tiger needs to just kind of baby steps it all the way up to the Masters.
So Tiger's tied for 133rd currently. The top 70 make the cut. So he has a lot of work to do today if he's going to make that cut, which I honestly don't think he will.
Probably not.
But I really do just think he's done. And golf right now is kind of in a weird, fluky place because for the last few decades, we don't have really a one true dominant golfer like we have in times before.
Right.
I feel like with golf right now, you can put the world rankings 1 through 50 in a hat and kind of just pull it out to see who's going to win. Because we don't have that one guy who's constantly dominating golf week in and week out like Tiger used to. And for golf, it's just a bad thing. Like, if Tiger was in contention on Sunday, that would get more ratings than the NFL would.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Now, golf, I mean, I couldn't tell you what the next tournament is coming up really ever, with the exception of the majors. So,
well, could we ever do that? Like, you talk about when Tiger was at his peak.
If Tiger Woods was playing, you might know.
Like, I knew there was obviously the majors, and I knew that there was one that was in Arizona, because that one was always kind of insane, and people would drink and everything else like that around there, and the crowd was insane. Like, there was some Waste Management Open or something like that was in Phoenix. Like, I knew that one because the people around there were always kind of insane, but I never really knew any of the tournaments outside of the majors, even when Tiger was at his peak.
I mean, I remember, like, oh, Tiger's going to be playing in this, or next week is this, see if Tiger can do it. I remember all the time I would know that, and now it's like golf is just really just in the tank because they don't have that star that they have had in times before, and it's really, really hurting them. I just think Tiger Woods is done. I think his body's kind of given up on him. He's been known his whole career for being, like, really physically built, hitting the long ball, taking a lot of strain on his body, and I think it's finally just kind of given up on him, and I don't think he's ever going to win again. But we'll have to wait and see. If he has to make the cut today, he's going to need a lot of work. He's going to need to improve practically 67 spots. He's tied for 133rd. Need to be in the top 70, as I mentioned. We'll take our last break of the show. After the break, we're going to talk about news in the NFL, some of these fluky Westgate Las Vegas prop bets, as well as the Pro Bowl. We had the skills contest yesterday in the dodgeball game, which I do like. They're nice additions. And we'll talk about the game itself right after the break at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So the Super Bowl might not be this weekend, so next week we'll probably talk about it every single day because, I mean, it's the Super Bowl.
Yep.
But it's never too early to look ahead. Not necessarily to the game in this mindset, but some of these weird and kooky prop bets we always see with the Super Bowl. So as far as some of the traditional bets, the Patriots are a 3-point favorite. Kind of surprised at that. I figured it would have been maybe like 6.5 or 7. And the over-under's 59. I think that's about right. That's about both teams scoring 30, so I could see that. But some of these other Super Bowl prop bets, every year we get them. And you have the traditional ones like who's going to win the coin toss. Is it going to be heads or tails? How long is the national anthem going to be going on? This year it'll be sang by Luke Bryan, who's a country musician. The Super Bowl halftime show. We always have these klooky prop bets, which are, I guess, are kind of fun and interesting. Good talking points. You have Super Bowl MVP bets. The favorites are Matt Ryan and Tom Brady. Right. Julio Jones and Julian Edelman are 12-1. So there's some sort of leeway there. But some of these other bets, they're getting kind of ridiculous. And I guess they're okay. Like some of them I'd actually make and have some confidence in. But actually, the way they're doing the Super Bowl prop bets this year, they're kind of comparing them to other sports, which is kind of something we haven't heard of before, which is kind of interesting. So listen to some of these. So you can bet on Tiger Woods' 18-hole score in the Omega Dubai Desert Classic. I'm not sure when that is, but I'm sure it's probably next week or the week after.
Right.
You can bet that versus Brady's passing yards. Brady's an 18.5, I guess, yard favorite. So, say Brady throws for 300 yards.
Right.
Tiger Woods would have to shoot like I don't know if you factor in the 18, you have to shoot like 277.5, 278 in order to break even. So that's kind of interesting. You can bet LeBron James points in the February 4th Cavs-Knicks game, so the night before, against Matt Ryan's completions. So LeBron, maybe 25, 26 points. Matt Ryan, the lines pick 'em. And then this is kind of the most interesting one, and one that maybe I would think about betting the most.
This is more you, especially.
Because I'm a soccer guy. Soccer's my favorite sport. I do the soccer show here. I love it. I wake up on the weekends pretty much at the crack of dawn every day to watch soccer. You can bet the total number of goals in the Leicester City versus Manchester United game, which will be the same day, against the Patriots and Falcons total touchdown. The line is pick'em. For me, I would bet the Patriots-Falcons touchdowns. Because with how Leicester City are playing right now in the Premier League, they're 15th. They're defending their title, and they are just a train wreck.
Okay.
They're terrible. Manchester United are playing really well. They did lose yesterday in a cup tie, which does not affect their Premier League standings. So they're doing really well in the league. They sit 6th right now. If I had to give an over-under on goals in that game, I'd probably go with 3, maybe 4 at the most. I would say the Falcons and Patriots will probably score more than 4 total touchdowns. Two of the better offenses. The Falcons are averaging 35 points a game. The Patriots have Brady, who lit up the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. So I'd say there's probably going to be at least 5, 6 touchdowns in that game.
Yeah, because it's just touchdowns. It's not touchdown passes by Brady or Ryan.
Right,
it's
just total scores.
Yeah.
So I'd probably go with the Falcons and Patriots touchdowns as opposed to the goals between Leicester and the Red Devils of Manchester United. But those are some of the klooky ones. But anyways, there's others. Joe Buck's tie pattern, Lady Gaga's hair color, the times, what songs Lady Gaga's going to sing. If I'm Joe Buck, why would I just not bet on the tie that has the worst odds? Like the tie that's the most, like 12-1 or something.
Yeah.
And just wear it and bet a ton of money on it.
Yeah, 100%.
Why would I not do that?
Well, that's the thing. Like even, I mean, we're a sports podcast show, and I understand that. But also, this weekend's a Royal Rumble for wrestling.
I'm so excited.
So it's one of those things where, like you said,
can bet on that as well. The Royal Rumble.
That's what I'm talking about. Like Buck can figure it out. He can wear a tie. Gaga can just like make herself Harley Quinn and go red and blue. And you can have something where the Gatorade bath. You can figure that out before the game. Like there's some of these things where you can legitimately before the game figure it out. Like the national anthem, how long that'll be. All these things are kind of done. And with wrestling, like, I mean, it's predetermined, so you can basically figure all that out beforehand, like if you have any kind of connection. So I don't know how they actually like monitor those things. Like, yeah, you and I have no connection to wrestling. You and I have no connection to Lady Gaga or Luke Bryan or anything like that. But if we did put $1,000 on, Luke Bryan basically doing what happened last year with the national anthem, where they basically just like decided to go for like 5 hours, bet the over, win a bunch of money. Like, I don't know how they actually monitor it that much to people like make all these like giant bets. And it's like, okay, but that's like your cousin knows his uncle. Like, I don't know how they would actually monitor those things and not have you just win a bunch of money.
And for people like Joe Buck, I mean, he's already a millionaire. He works at Fox. He works the Super Bowl every 3 years. He works the World Series every year. He's not hurting for money.
And you don't want that kind of controversy of like being unethical and stuff like that. I get that.
But still, I mean, like, why would I not just secretly have my wife or my mom or something I give her like $10,000 to bet on, I don't know, a solid black tie.
Right.
Because I know I'm going to wear a solid black tie. I just don't know why I would do it. I mean, personally, like, you're basically giving me a shot to cheat the system.
Yeah.
Why would I not do it? Okay, so sticking with the NFL, we have the Pro Bowl this weekend. Yesterday we had kind of the skills, I guess, contest, whatever you want to call them, workouts. Some of them being a dodgeball game, which the NFC won. Mm-hmm. There's like this drone drop for the kick returners and punt returners where a drone carries a ball up to a certain amount of feet and drops the ball. And it's pretty windy. It's Orlando. It's Florida. It's a drone that's not really steady completely. So the ball's kind of moving all over the place. It's moving at really, really high speeds, 85, 100, 150 feet in the air, whatever it may be. So it gets a little difficult, and I guess it's a good addition, I want to say, because the Pro Bowl's really been scrutinized, especially the last few years, because The people just don't want to play in it, and they don't play.
Yeah. No, that's the thing, because football was one of those...
they're on the field, but it's like they're just basically standing there.
Yeah, and you had the thing with, at least with baseball or basketball, right? You had the All-Star games, but you also had the kind of other stuff surrounding it, right? With baseball, you got the home run derby. With basketball, you got the slam dunk contest or the 3-point contest. Like, you have these things that were kind of like sideshows that people wanted to watch also. But football, I mean, they had it at one time. Like, I remember when I was little playing, like, they had this video game that wasn't Madden, but it was one of those things where it was like a QB competition, kind of like on PS2, I think it was. And it was fun to play something like that. You'd have like Donovan McNabb and Michael Vick and trying to do all these precision passing stuff, which is what they ended up doing. Right here, they had that. They had basically a strength competition, strength, agility kind of competition with like Von Miller and linebackers and offensive linemen and stuff like that. You had the thing where they had the drone for like 100, 125 yards in the air and just dropping in, try and see if people like Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry can catch it. Like, you had all these other competitions, and then dodgeball at the very end. Now, I will say this with dodgeball, a little underwhelming. Also, next year, I want Aqib Talib, Ndamukong Suh, Pac-Man Jones. I want these guys in the dodgeball competition because I feel like they're insane, and I want them to play dodgeball. Like, you can refine these things, and you can kind of make it a little bit better as you go along. Give me my crazy people for dodgeball.
I'd love to see, of course, like you said, it's still early. Maybe they can add some more to it. I'd love to see it kind of split up by like a tournament, by positions,
right?
Conferences. I'd love to see like the NFC lineman team versus the NFC running back team, or the AFC defensive back team, and then you kind of have like a single elimination tournament instead of just like one game that takes 5-10 minutes.
I saw something that they did yesterday, which was kind of like, I heard it and I was just like, oh, that makes sense, but it's also kind of weird. Like, it's dodgeball, right? But if you hit someone in the head, it was a penalty. And I was just like, I get it. That's fine. I know you're worried about concussions. I get it, because you're still being sued by these people, or at least you have, new stuff popping up all the time. But it was one of those things that was like, okay, either have dodgeball or don't have dodgeball. Like, I get it and stuff like that, but like I said, you can still refine these things, right? You can still kind of add some new things, take away some things. Because the dodgeball thing seemed kind of like strange and weird, because everything else had like a structure to it of just like, okay, you're going to run in this place, you're going to throw to this area, the drone's going to drop on this place. Like, you had it all set up to it. The dodgeball thing was just like a kind of place off to the side. They were just like, okay, dodgeball is going to be played here, and you guys figure it out.
Yeah, that's kind of silly. But yeah, I'd love to see like a little tournament. Okay, so real quick before the show, Anthony, you are going to be watching the Royal Rumble, as will I.
Yes, I will.
Prediction.
Okay, so I've been talking to my buddies about this because we're trying to figure it out, because there's like 5 or 6 people that could actually win this, and
it's tough.
Because the thing, like, you could say a couple people, you could say Lesnar, you could say Goldberg, you can say even Cena or something like that, and I don't care.
Undertaker.
Undertaker.
Okay, I'm a big wrestling fan.
Right.
I'm a big wrestling fan, and this has a lot of people on the show may not be, so this might even be something you're not even listening to. But anyways, it's a good talking point. So I feel like it probably depends on a couple of things. One, who are going to be the surprise entrances?
Samoa Joe,
I feel like
Finn
Samoa
Balor,
Joe, Finn Balor.
Shinsuke Nakamura. You could get people like that come in.
If Finn Balor is healthy enough to return...
It's been about 6 months since he separated his shoulder. That's about the time it takes.
I feel like if Finn Balor is healthy enough to return and he is in the Royal Rumble, he's going to win it. So he's going to be my prediction. Every year there's the surprise entrances. I'm going to say Finn Balor, and it sets up Finn Balor versus Kevin Owens at WrestleMania.
See, that would be fun.
Because it all depends on who you have winning the title matches. Because you have to have a good guy versus a heel. You can't have two of it the other way around.
Because there's a couple things that I want to see. So, like, I want to see Shinsuke in there, and I'd
love that. I don't expect it, because I think they need to keep some top superstars in NXT to keep that brand alive. But I would love it.
I want to see either Shinsuke or Samoa come in there and basically...
I think Samoa Joe's a lock. He's going to be in there.
Because he's been in NXT for a really long time at this point. And I want to see... Like, I understand AJ's a champion right now, but I want to see them face each other, whether it's for the title or whether it's just something at WrestleMania. Like, I want to see either Shinsuke versus AJ or Samoa versus AJ at WrestleMania.
That'd be pretty good.
And, like, part of me wants to say Undertaker to win the Royal Rumble, because that sets up a storyline of he wins Cena wins the title, WrestleMania, they have their match. Like, that kind of sets up really nicely. But you have to have Undertaker at, like, number 29 or 30 to do it. You can't have him at, like, 5, 6, 7, even 10 to stay there for a long time. You need to have him at the very end. A buddy of mine said The Miz, which isn't a terrible idea, just to kind of swerve it like that and kind of make people, because he's done so well with the Intercontinental title, kind of like help him build, like, okay, you did really well here. We're going to give you, like, one more push with the main title, see how you do with that. I'll say Undertaker, just because I think it's good enough story of, like, you can have him have his John Cena WrestleMania match, which never happened. Have him go for the title one last time and win, lose, or whatever happens. After WrestleMania, he retires. Like, I think that's a kind of a cool story, so I want to say Undertaker.
I feel like it kind of depends on what they have going for WrestleMania.
Right.
Because after watching Monday Night Raw last week, they have Seth Rollins versus Triple H.
Right.
That's going to happen at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I would assume it'd be Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg again at WrestleMania, like it was at WrestleMania 20.
Right.
So I think it depends on what they have for The Undertaker, whether it be maybe a John Cena, maybe a Randy Orton again, although they've done that before. Mm-hmm. So I think you could throw in a little wrench here. You could have a triple threat match at WrestleMania, Undertaker, Brock Lesnar, and Goldberg, which would be kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if they really want to do that because you'd have one match with 3 stars when you could split it up with 2 because you're going to have Goldberg and Lesnar anyways, and you could have Undertaker versus whomever.
And Undertaker already faced Brock Lesnar and at WrestleMania and lost.
Right.
So, like, you kind of already played that. You didn't do Goldberg, but you already had the Lesnar thing.
Right, so you're kind of putting 2 matches into one in that regard. So I think it kind of depends on where they feel or how they feel they have enough star power or not for WrestleMania, which is going to be in April. It's on my birthday, actually. So
nice.
But so I think it kind of depends. But yeah, I'm really excited for this Sunday.
Yeah,
I think that'll be great. So that's going to end the show. Something a little new, something some WWE we have really never talked about on the show.
Right.
So that's going to be it for the show. My name is Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
We are signing off here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. And we will see you on Monday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.